Hello there, dear viewer, welcome to the Skyrim build. It's divine. It's all about Stendarr, the god of mercy, so naturally we annihilate everything in a few different ways. This is another entry to my collab with my friend, PCOutcast. He has his own Stendarr-themed build for you to compare the two. Link in the description. Say hi from me in the comments. But for now, let's go over my build. I wanted to avoid making yet another paladin or a vigilant of Stendarr, at least a typical half-armored mace-wielding cleric most vigilants appear to be in the game. Instead, I made a former archivist and a loremaster who used to advise the vigil on the methods of fighting Daedra and undead. He then got a little bit too enthusiastic about the Daedric lore while researching some group of warlocks. As the game begins, he is already on his path to redemption though, and joining the Dawn Guard as well as rebuilding his favor with the Stendarr are probably going to be on that path. He will still combine the vile shadow magic he learned in his darker days with a pretty shiny restoration magic to create a combat style capable of dealing with all sorts of supernatural threats. Gameplay-wise, he is a combo of a witch hunter and a monk with kick-ass unarmed power attacks enhanced with magic and with a good ranged option. This has some unfortunate side effects. I really wanted to avoid double enchants as, well, I do it too often, and I think it would be more interesting if I actually had to choose my enchantments carefully. It means we won't have enough slots to improve all things we need improved. Archery, unarmed damage, and magic and elemental resistances. This sucks for an anti-mage character, I know, so the need may arise to switch bits of your gear depending on who you fight. However, we will also have a set of anti-mage spells from spell mods, spells draining magicka and disabling spellcasting, and a lot of the enemies can be dealt with before they even get a chance to cast a spell. The build involves some of my favorite techniques, for example refreshing your power attack enhancing spells with the Escape Artist perk, triggering effects with power attacks which you will never run out due to Andromeda Lord Stone. Stacking debuff spells while hidden is another thing, completing your arsenal with a diverse range of scrolls and abusing the Spirit Guardian spell from Triumvirate mod to gain quite a few extra powers. Normally, when worshipping Stendarr, you would lose his favor when you summon, but the Spirit Guardian, despite being potentially the best summon in the game, depending on how you equip them, is not a conjuration spell and doesn't count against the tenets of Stendarr. If you equip them with some powerful summoning staffs and scrolls, you will be able to introduce a little bit of those vile conjuration spells without losing one of your best boons. Let's take a look at the mods. Obviously, the Wintersun Faiths of Skyrim is necessary to get some powerful anti-Daedra and anti-undead buffs. 3 perfectly balanced spell mods, Apocalypse, Odin and Triumvirate, are used and abused to the point which may be considered game-breaking by some, but hey, vanilla game has restoration loops, so I think we are still within vanilla levels of power. Andromeda is also quite essential to the build. Its Lord Stone ability allows you to power attack when out of stamina, and a lot of our main spells enhance power attacks. Unfortunately, for those who would like their game close to vanilla, pretty much every single key spell for this build comes from these 3 mods, and the build wouldn't work as shown without Vokrii, Wintersun and Summermyst. Finally, the build could use an ability to craft scrolls. I use them for the master level destruction and restoration, but also to realize the theme of combining Daedra summoning with the divine inspiration of Stendarr by giving Daedra summoning items to my Spirit Guardian. Spell Research is one mod with an excellent scroll crafting system, and with many compatibility patches covering all the spell mods I used here. His outfit is also very much modded. He wears the darkest variant of common clothes from Common Clothes and Armors, with a Wanderer cape from Modular Clothing, black Nibenese mage hood from Bruma, and a few bits from Bandolier bags and pouches. Bandolier adds book holders, which can be used as an extra enchantment slot, and I did use this one. It just seemed so cool for a character drawing his power from reading forbidden grimoires. I couldn't really resist. Another extra slot was obtained with more balance and effort by unlocking the armor padding Vokrii perk. The fact that all these items from all these mods can be worn together with very minimal clipping is a little miracle. So the attributes ratio is 1 to 1 to 1. All attributes are equally important, there is no way around it. We also would like to keep our stamina and magicka bars full as much as possible because the raw damage of our power attacks is going to be affected by the current stamina total, and we will have the Nightblade spell always on. Nightblade teleports you to a target you have your crosshair on when you attack, power attack in fact, and deals damage dependent on your current magicka. Summermyst enchantments were used to keep both these attributes high. Siphon's stamina will absorb it from nearby foes, and Reclaim magicka will give you magicka when an enemy dies nearby. This can be further improved with Draining Touch Triumvirate spell and the Draining Shroud, both absorbing magicka and health. The Lord Stone was chosen, as mentioned, to trigger some special power attack effects like Stave of Binding and Blazing Strikes, even when out of stamina. This means you will always be able to deal extra magic damage, immobilize and disarm enemies in close combat. Now the race is a little bit problematic for this one. I went with an orc, a Morningstar version of an orc, as it enhances our power attacks with 15% extra damage and grants us really good stamina regeneration when a lot of enemies are around. A lot of enemies is around? I think are? Anyway, with a lot of enemies around, yes. So, with a power attack, we get more damage from high stamina, more damage in general, and it stacks with 20% more damage on power attacks from the Lord Stone. Obviously, to enhance the mage slaying aspect of the build, you could also go for a Breton. It's a tough one, tough choice, depends if you want to be better at witch hunting or at monking. Anyway, if you are an orc, with your build finished around level 50 and your stamina bar full, you should get 35% extra power attack damage from Race and Stone and almost a 100 points of damage buff from stamina. On top of that, there is magical damage from spells enhancing your power attacks, around 70 points of Holy Shock, 95 from a strike spell of your choice, and some unspecified amount of raw magic damage from the Nightblade spell, 670 at full magicka, but unfortunately that won't be happening very often. Let's say 200 something is a believable average. Oh, and there is another 60 points of random elemental damage from a Vokrii perk. Before we move on to the skills, remember that characters like this have an abysmal early game. Don't stress out about starting on high difficulty and or wear some light armor, maybe even carry a melee weapon for first few levels. Wearing some light armor will let you unlock the Iron Fists perk sooner, and from there you can get light armor experience when punching. Alrighty, the main skills are light armor, archery, alteration, enchanting, restoration, sneak, and there is a little pinch of smithing, destruction, and illusion. Quite a list as you can see, but only a few of them need a lot of perk points to be useful to the build. In light armor we obviously want all the unarmed combat Vokrii perks on the left hand side, all ranks, with the first rank of Iron Fists being your top priority in the early game. These perks will give you a chance to stagger and disarm. The Stave of Binding spell immobilizes the target of your power attacks and gives another chance to disarm. In a nutshell, the enemies you decide to power attack against are royally screwed, stun-locked, and mostly helpless. In archery, we totally want power shot, ranger, and quickshot, which are extra wonderful for crossbow users, offsetting the key weakness of crossbows while enhancing its inbuilt stagger chance. But there is a tough question in Vokrii. Do we want to get there through the long distance perks or the short distance ones? Both will be useful, but you should pick just one if you don't want to play this character for quite a few levels above 50. I opted for one rank of Far Shot and Bleeding Shot to get some extra edge on long-range sneak attacks. I also took Eagle Eye to make those attacks easier to execute. But given the amount of perks in so many different skills, you may as well choose to rely on your own skill and patience for that. In Sneak we go for Deadly Aim, of course, but also for the 100 perk of Escape Artist. Yes, I did it again. With Okatos Recital, Okatos Spell Trigger and Okatos Preparation perk, you will have up to 5 self-targeting spells cast on you for free at the beginning of each combat. With Escape Artist you can crouch mid-combat to restart combat, thus refreshing all those spells. Unfortunately, with this build there is a soft conflict between this technique and the Channel Divinity boon from Stendarr. Channel Divinity is an extremely powerful buff, granting you over 50% extra damage output to all your physical attacks, over 50% damage reduction, and then also 50% faster health regeneration, which will combine nicely with your auto-cast Draining Shroud and normally cast Troll's Blood spells. Unfortunately, it only lasts for up to 3 battles, which means if you refresh the current combat with Escape Artist a lot, you will turn off Channel Divinity very quickly. So use your Stendarr's buff only when you want to go for a more direct approach of punching everything. It is a preferable approach in dragon fights, in broad daylight, and some crowded boss fights like the final fight against Potema. In Restoration we definitely want both ranks of Inner Light. We do absorb magicka from nearby phones in... Phones? From nearby phones? In Restoration we definitely want both ranks of Inner Light. We do absorb magicka from nearby freaking phones. In Restoration we definitely want both ranks of Inner Light. We do absorb magicka from nearby foes in 3 different ways, but the more you can do to keep your magicka bar filled, the better for the efficiency of your Nightblade spell. Mercy and Respite will be crucial before the build is complete. But with your gear and other skill trees sorted out, they will become a waste of perk points. I advise you to make the skill legendary at some point in the late game and then reacquire Inner Light. In Illusion, we really want quiet casting. It will allow us to cast all the debuff spells, the Draining Touch, the passive damage of Consecrated Ground, all without being detected, while our Spirit Guardian takes the heat of battle on his or herself. A lot of anti-mage spells like Wizard Rend or Expose Spirit are illusion spells, as well as general debuffs like Frailty and Weakness. These are most useful early to mid-game before you can build up all your self-targeted buffs, so take those 2 illusion perks as early as possible. In Destruction we want all ranks of Raw Power, which will enhance all our health and magicka draining spells, and stack with the Amplified Destruction enchantment on our head. This will allow the Nightblade spell to reach the terrifying amount of 650 points of magic damage on a power attack when on full magicka. Alteration is going to be the cornerstone of our magic and anti-magic efficiency. As always, all ranks of mage armor are recommended. All ranks of magic resistance are absolutely necessary. Sorcerer's Robes makes all our spells 25% stronger. Yep, including all the sick power attack buffs, and a few points of extra stamina from Alter Self will be very useful before our item loadout is complete, and even after it's done it will make power attacks slightly stronger. In Enchanting we want Regalia Enchanter, 1 rank of Scroll Sage to double the power of our scrolls, and Scroll Hunter to get a chance to find a random scroll on slain enemies. I don't think you need more ranks of Scroll Sage, but if you happen to acquire a lot of scrolls in the late game, you may as well take more than just this 1 rank. It will be a rather low priority perk anyway. And in Smithing we go for Steel Smithing, which will eventually turn the basic enhanced crossbow into a rather scary weapon. With 3 handcrafted fortified smithing items and a blacksmith's elixir and your maxed Channel Divinity buff, it will exceed 350 damage per shot. Linen Padding was used for the area Drain Magic Resist, applying weakness to magic to all enemies in melee reach. This will enhance all your magical power attack damage by another bit, well, depending on a magic resistance or lack thereof of your targets. Oh my god, this video is going to be long. We still have gear and spells to cover. Well, alright, my main crossbow carries the simple absorb magicka effect. This is wonderful for keeping your Nightblade spell effective, inciting you to switch between punching and ranged combat, often kinda cool. The worn gear is as follows: Amplified Destruction on your circlet, Reclaim Magicka on clothes, Siphon Stamina on the book holder, Area Drain Magic Resist on linen padding, Fortify Magicka on the gloves, Fortify Stamina on your boots, Resist Magic on your ring, and Fortify Archery on the necklace. Unfortunately, our Nibinese, I never know how to pronounce that, our Nibinese hood counts as a helmet for the purposes of its applicable enchantments, so it cannot carry the Amplified Destruction effect. Luckily, it can be worn on top of a circlet. If you don't mind breaking the game even more, you may opt for another Fortify Archery on the hood itself. With the insane amount of power attack enhancers, you can forego the Fortify Unarmed entirely. Early in the game, it may be useful to have it though, and since you want to be able to max out your magic and elemental resistances, I would advise you to carry some extra necklaces or even boots for that. And remember to cast the Resist Element spell on yourself. As you can see here, there is an awful amount of useful spells for this build. Some will be active pretty much at all times because of Okatos Recital and Okatos Spell Trigger. Put Holy Shock, Stave of Binding and Draining Shroud in Okatos Recital. Then later in the game, remember to memorize Shadow Dance via Okatos Spell Trigger. This means in each combat you will immobilize, disarm and deal extra damage and power attacks. Shadow Dance is a little bit weird. As long as it is active, you are able to teleport at short distances when jumping. This is great for switching from punching to crossbow. So you power punch forward, possibly teleporting via the Nightblade spell towards the nearest target and dealing hundreds of extra magic damage, but spending a lot of magicka. Then, since you want more magicka, you jump backwards, teleporting a few feet away from the fight via Shadow Dance. Using Escape Artist, you should be then able to hide by crouching, switch to crossbow and execute some sneak shots, refilling your magicka. If someone is still up and fighting, you can switch back to the fists and do another supercharged Nightblade attack. Rinse and repeat, you know. So Shadow Dance is part of a fun combo, but it may also sometimes put you in weird places behind sarcophagi or even inside a wall. Maybe annoying. Usually it doesn't happen though, and of course there are console commands on if you are on PC. At the start of most fights you should also use a Strikes spell. Hallowed Strikes against undead, blazing, shocking or freezing against other foes. Troll's Blood and Visions of Healing will make you almost immortal, especially with a Draining Shroud. Use this, especially when you go full YOLO with no sneaking but with your Channel Divinity active. Consecrated Ground is a perfectly balanced spell, dealing small amounts of damage per second in a large radius. Combined with all your health absorbing spells and Visions of Healing, the damage actually becomes quite sizable and you can often clear out whole rooms this way without even being detected because quiet casting. When you add some Firestorm Scrolls on top of all that, you are basically a one-man army, but nobody knows where that army is hiding. So in the end you will have a character combining impressive versatility with intimidating brute force, excelling against undead but still really deadly against anything else. The roleplay idea is also quite exciting to me, balancing on the edge of falling into the pits of Daedra worship all the time, but never really crossing the line entirely, with a guardian angel who summons demons and a burning desire to slay all the vampires and all the Daedra. Except the ones summoned by the spirit, of course. Those are our guys, those are fine. This turned out much better than I expected. Pity it requires so many mods, but you can't always have it all, I guess. Now, this was a challenge. Please let me know down in the comments what you like or even what you dislike about this build. If you've played something like this, share your experiences. I may revisit this concept at some point after all. Remember that you can support me on Subscribestar if you think I deserve a nickel for all of this. There is also the Super Chats button for one-time financial support. I'm not sure if anyone uses that, to be honest. Most importantly though, have fun in Skyrim and anywhere else, and come back for more. We will see each other. No, wait, I need to mention my Fallout 4 builds. They don't have enough viewership. I love them. I am increasingly in love with Fallout 4. And really, guys, if you feel like this game is not entirely useless and horrible, give it a go, give it a chance. I have a few good Fallout 4 builds now, and possibly, hopefully, I will have some more. Okay, this is enough for now. We will see each other again, and bye bye.